Good afternoon, everyone. You're very welcome to our webinar, Exploring Apprenticeships. My name is Richard Kirk. I'm the founder and CEO of WorkPlus, and I'm delighted to be joined by Stef Brooks from Instil. Today, Stef is the head of people at Instil, a software development business based in Belfast. Stef, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Great. Rather than me read out a long list of your accolades, Stef, it's probably best if we just have a conversation. For folks to understand a little bit about your background, how you got into HR, and the role you've currently got at Instil.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much for inviting me, Richard. I find it actually quite fitting to be to work with WorkPlus because of how I got to where I was today. I left school in 5th year to do an apprenticeship in hairdressing, because when I was at school, you either stayed on, did your A-levels at university, or you did an apprenticeship. And for girls in particular, it was hairdressing beauty, and for young fellows, it would have been going into a trade of some sort. And after a year, realised that this is not what I wanted to do. Went to a recruitment agency just to get a job, and they actually offered me a job there as an administrator. It kind of went from there. I realized that actually I quite enjoyed the recruitment process. I enjoyed working with people, moved into recruitment, and then realized that I'm not a salesperson, and there is that element of sales and agency recruitment, and it wasn't for me. But I really enjoyed the employee side of recruitment and really employee journeys and things like that. So I went and studied for my CIPD with Belfast Met, and it was 2 nights a week for a year. I did my level 3 there, moved on, progressed within different HR roles, and I suppose a very quick kind of fast forward today, I find myself as head of people for a very successful technology company. I am now educated to master's degree level, have done a degree and a master's degree in HR via CIPD, and I did it in a very different roundabout way. I was afforded opportunities by employers. I don't have any student debt, thankfully. I didn't go down the traditional traditional university route. But as much as I don't regret anything in my career, I don't regret how I've come to where I have today. I do feel that the choices and the options were not available to me when I was leaving school, and I still think that today, whilst the options are there, not enough people know about them, and not enough people are able to kind of give those options and tell, particularly school leavers, but I suppose anybody can do an HLA, but particularly that school leaver age, well, here's your options, and here's what you can do. And that's why, Richard, obviously from joining Instil, I've been with Instil Software for nearly a year now. We're on our 2nd year working with WorkPlus, and it is a no-brainer for me. And that is, that's not because I'm here chatting to you today. I genuinely believe from both an employer perspective, from a mother's perspective, and from my personal experience, these options need talked about, and people need to know what's available to them. I feel it's really, really important.
Yeah, well, it's encouraging to hear your story, because you've come through that non-traditional route, and you've had the benefit of getting to where you are today, and all the skills that you've picked up along the way, whether it was in hairdressing or recruitment, they've all made you who you are. And today, it's great to hear that. And we've been working with Instil, and it's been great to get to know you as a business. How do you see things currently out there? There's a lot of movement in the labour market. Let's forget about apprenticeships for a second. Just a lot of movement going on at the minute. What are some of the pain points or frustrations that you're finding in that sort of labour market? What's your take?
Yeah, there absolutely is. I think for quite a while now, from a tech perspective anyway, it's been an employee-led market, which is scary place to be when you're an employer. What we have found, I suppose, in the last year, and throughout the pandemic as well, first of all, the technology industry was not negatively impacted during the pandemic, or certainly not the area that we specialize in. Now, I didn't just work for technology when the pandemic started, so I have been on the other, been on the other side where, there was difficult decisions for companies to make and stuff, and unfortunately I had to make redundancies in my previous place during the pandemic. But now to where we are now, and again, taking it back and focusing on the tech industry, the world is your oyster if you're within technology, and I think a lot of industries are similar, same like hospitality and different industries where staff quite literally have their pick, or potential employees quite literally have their pick of what they want, and what we're finding is that work-life balance is massive in the market. People want the work-life balance, and there's been loads of surveys done lately. I've done surveys internally, and also I've reviewed surveys that other companies have done, where salary, whilst is important, it's not as far ahead on that list of importance as what it once was. And people are actually looking at those benefits and the work-life balance and the development opportunities and the learning opportunities within companies. Companies are having to be very, very competitive now. They're having to make their packages very attractive, and not just their base salaries, everything about the package. I find myself quite fortunate that we are in a company where we can work remotely and still offer our clients this exact same services and keep our employees happy and engaged at the same time. But even with that in mind, and how flexible we can be and how great our packages are, there are still companies out there that seem to be able to do more, and you're constantly on that kind of you're always on, you're always looking around to see what everyone else is doing. Now, what I would say, and what we're starting to observe, is that is starting to curve a little bit. We're starting to see a little bit of a curve going from an employee-led to more, level playing field again, where people are maybe seeing these companies that are offering unlimited annual leave, this, that, and the other, and realizing that actually they're not. Grass isn't always greener on the other side, and they're starting to reconsider their options again. But certainly the last 12 months has been incredibly competitive. We've lost out to other companies on really great talent for totally different reasons that 3 years ago you wouldn't have heard of.
Yeah. Great stuff, thank you. Folks, I should say we have a Q&A function here on Zoom, as you'll no doubt be aware after 2.5 years of doing this. So please type your questions in, and we'll try and pick up as many as we can at the end. So that'll be good. So Stef, we've thought a little bit about the labour market and what's been going on. You've been with Instil for a year. We've been working with Instil for a couple of years. What's your sense of why it took Instil to only 2 years ago to be thinking about apprenticeships?
I think, and again, I do apologise for kind of bringing things back to the technology industry. I would say this is across the board, but I suppose it's taken until now for companies to really realise, and this is so cheesy, I know this is cheesy, but those entry-level positions are our future CEOs and our future managing directors and people that are going to be running these companies, and we need to invest now, especially within industries such as the tech, where technology is constantly evolving, and the next piece of technology is already in the pipeline before this bit has been launched, sort of thing. And it is that next generation of skills that are coming through that we really need to nourish and develop. So, from our perspective and from Instil is 17 years old and has had quite an organic growth, wherein, people have joined and generally most of the time stayed and worked their way up. But actually what we're finding now, when we look at industry-wide and across different industries, that entry level, apprentice, graduate level is the real focus. That's where people want to invest their time, their monies and their energies, because they are the next kind of stage coming up through companies. And I think what we need to, what Instil and other companies really need to think about is that kind of not only just retention, but planning ahead, and that kind of who's going to take over when, one cohort are getting to the end of their career and are lucky enough to go off and retire. It's all well and good while they're brilliant and working through, but it's that kind of retention plan plus that takeover plan as well. For us, that's really, really important. And we've been quite fortunate that we are able to grow within, but it needs to be continuous. You need to continuously be, it's like we need to continuously be going through that cycle, and bringing in that fresh talent, and as I say, really nourishing them.
Yeah. Give us a bit of a high level view. I'm really talking about numbers of staff. So tell us what sort of size Instil, how many of those entry levels are you bringing in each year, graduate and apprentices, and what's the breakdown of that, just to give folks on the webinar a bit of a sense of what that looks like.
So I suppose to give context into how we've grown, we've doubled in size. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we had just under 30 people. We're now sitting at 60. And in August, that number will be 80. Out of those 20 new starts, 15 of them are that entry level, apprentice, graduate, HLA level. So they are. So, you're talking at nearly 20%, a massive, massive number for such a small company. Plus we have then a further cohort of interns and grads starting in October. We do take in twice a year anyway, so it would usually be August and January. So the folks that are starting in October are just those finishing their degrees slightly later. But we'll always take another cohort then in January. So year on year, we are continuing to bring in that kind of number. And what we have found on the market is that a lot of companies are looking at 60% of their intake being of that graduate apprentice level, and that's looking at big companies such as Liberty, Kainos, Allstate. It's looking at the big companies, not just smaller companies like us. They are all focusing on that entry level candidate, and they're actually investing very heavily in creating academies for these entry level people coming in, so that not only are they coming into work, but they're still getting that development, which is really important too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you say 15 are coming in this year, and that's to make the head count around 80.
Yep.
So that's roughly 20% increase. I did 20% of your head count are going to be coming in at that entry level. Does that bring challenges? I know you're not at that 60% level that maybe some of the other companies are at, but does that bring challenges in terms of mentoring, getting alongside, whether it be interns, apprentices, graduates? What does it look like to mold and shape those future CEOs that you talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt, it brings challenges, and you're taking a risk. You're bringing in quite a high percentage, and so we're a software consultancy, so we create products for other companies. So you're taking that risk that we're soon going to be outnumbered bottom heavy as opposed to top heavy. But what we have designed to ensure that we get it right is we have an excellent, world-class training team led by Gareth Gilmore, and we actually create academies for all of our new starts, but this academy in particular for this cohort of 15 in August will be a 6-week course where they're coming in and they're learning industry language, they're learning industry practices, outside a classroom, on job. And that's where if we didn't have that, it would just be messy. You would just have random kind of apprentices and grads just all over the place, not knowing what they're doing. So for us, what we feel one of the challenges would be making sure that they are engaged and hitting the ground running, and that's why we introduced the academies, to make sure that they're coming in and they're coming into something that is it's planned, it's scheduled. It's not just throw them in and let them go. So from day one of joining the company, they're still developing, they're still learning new skills, and they'll continue to do so. The risk obviously does come with bringing in that high number. This is the highest number we've done so far. So ask me in September how it went, but we're pretty confident. Like we would do that mentor / buddy system with all our new starts anyway, and we would be quite collaborative in how we would work day to day, but it's just making sure that support's there and that we're giving them support. Same with all new starts, like that's not just your apprentice level, but really making sure that there is something in place, that there is an actual plan in place and objectives to them coming in and starting. And you know, so far the risk the risk has been worth it. You know, it hasn't ended us yet. So and I'm confident that with this the talent we have starting, you know, we're only going to grow and continue to grow. And what we find too is if we give them a really good experience, they're more willing then to mentor the next session. Like the 2 apprentices we have through yourselves from last year, Oscar and Caleb, they're just chomping at the bit to be the mentor for the next kind of cohort of apprentices coming in, which is really, really great. You know, it's lovely to see.
That's good. Well, that's actually a perfect way to move in, because I'd love you to share a bit about Oscar and Caleb and how they're getting on. And I suppose even some of the things you talked about in terms of the model that you've got there. You know, with folks on the call today are maybe coming from professional services, construction, manufacturing backgrounds, but those principles could apply across the board. But yes, we're keen to hear just who are Oscar and Caleb and how are they getting on.
Yeah, of course. So Oscar and Caleb are obviously the first apprentices we brought through through Work Plus. So they actually started the company. They're coming up to a year. They started at the same time as me. So well, I'll say unfortunately I wasn't involved in their selection. But from day one, they have been incredible. Anybody who speaks to Oscar and Caleb would give you their own personal kind of feedback and honest feedback about the process, and they would praise and, you know, recommend anyone going through Work Plus. But for us, it was you know, when I joined, because they had only just started, it was very much so, okay, so we've tried this scheme, it's called Work Plus, we've got these 2 apprentices and we don't know what happened, you know, we don't know how this is going to go. And we have all been absolutely blown away by Oscar and Caleb. So they go to university 1 day a week and they're with us 4 days a week, but they are just our employees. They're treated no differently. They're given a full-time contract. They're given, you know, every benefit and everything else that our other employees get. And their level of skill already is phenomenal, and they're only just finishing their first year at university. They both say that when they were going to choose their step after A level, their parents would have liked them to have maybe gone to university, or, you know, they looked at all options. And I think they were both quite confident that this is the route they wanted to take, and they're so glad they have. They're getting a full-time salary, they're getting their course paid for them, they're getting all the benefits. Like there's a bit of a joke in the office because, you know, Richard Bell, who is one of the directors, went to university and did computer science that way, and he says when he was a student he couldn't afford to shop on Marxies food, whereas these guys are just like going and getting their lunch from Marxies and things like that. You know, it's all a good faith, but you know, they're experiencing that same level of education, but they're getting the real life experience as well. And they will both quite openly and honestly say, so I'm not, you know, putting words in their mouth, but actually sometimes they wish they could just work 5 days a week because they enjoy it so much. They enjoy the model that they do and they really enjoy it, and they never say no to, you know, joining in and being part of something. And you know, they'll go to events, they're really confident, but they are exceptional engineers at such a young kind of, well, a young age, and that entry level through the apprenticeship. And I think well, I'm sure Oscar's dad shared it, so I'll share it to you just because why not. You know, Oscar scored the highest in his maths in the country, in his A-level maths. So, you know, I think there's still a misconception that, you know, if you are that kind of top of the class, you go to university and you do it that way. And I'm so glad that Oscar and Caleb have done it this way, because they are the perfect example as to why the apprenticeship route is for everybody. The opportunities there for everybody, and they love it. They do not regret going down the apprenticeship route versus the traditional full-time in university for 4 years?
Yeah, it's so encouraging to hear that. And I think it was Caleb's dad was on an event for us, which we run for parents, but it's parents of apprentices that are on the panel. And he just said about how content Caleb was in what he was doing. And I think for parents as being such huge influencers, that it's a great message to hear that apprentices are content in what they're doing, and actually the salary, the job, where they live, all of that is secondary really to the contentment that they have, and not having student debt hanging over them, which is a point you've made already, and a bit of money in their pockets. So remember they both had really nice sneakers the time I saw them. So yeah, they're clearly shopping in Marxies, and really, really lovely trainers too. So
and I found it quite interesting too. Sorry to cut over there, Richard, but at the Digital DNA event yesterday, we were both listening to the same panel, and there was a I think he was 19, John, 19-year-old, and he had said, he was asked the question about, he didn't go to university. He decided to do his own thing within tech, and he built an app. But I found it quite interesting because the guy leading the panel said, how did your parents react when you decided you didn't want to do it? And he was like, I sat and I did my A-levels, and I remember sitting in my last A-level exam thinking, what's the point? Because I don't want to go to university. And he said that he thinks he was quite fortunate to have parents that were like, yeah. He said, but what he found, and what the panel kind of said is, parents only want the best for their children. Obviously, we all only want the best for our children. But if we don't understand the routes available and the options available, naturally we're going to go with what we feel is safe and comfortable, and that may be doing A-levels in university. And I think that's, and we may talk about it. I don't know, we have discussed it in depth before, Richard, but I think that it's really important that we are just explaining those options to students, but that we're giving parents the opportunity to understand them as well, which I know, with Caleb's dad talking and stuff, he was able to give a bit of an insight. But yeah, I just think that's really, really important, that they understand the opportunities that could come out of an apprentice.
Yeah, and although Oscar and Caleb are still in place, we've been working with companies since 2019, and there've been businesses that have had apprentices come through, and they've stuck with them as well. And it's not just a short-term thing, to get some work out of someone and then moving them on and getting in the next apprentice. And some of the apprentices that we've helped companies find are very earning a great wage. It's not the apprentice minimum wage of £4 an hour. It's actually 19,000, 20,000 a year. So that's a great deal for everybody, as well as getting something to do each day. It's not just sitting on Zoom in university. And I know that they're back now, probably in class, but that was a terrible period for the last couple of years. And some of the apprentices that came through did really find it very difficult being on Zoom, and actually look forward, as you say, to being in the office instead.
Yeah, and what we found too is with I feel really, really sorry for students who have been going through their degree during the pandemic and have been unable to get the real sense of what an internship looks like. And we found it when we were interviewing for our grads that without that year's work experience, it totally changed how those students were able to interview and answer questions. And I think that just is proof that on-the-job learning is as important sometimes as what they can be taught within that classroom environment, and that's what they get through an apprenticeship.
I'm gonna share a few slides just to maybe help folks and think some of this through. And because apprenticeships is a bit of an unknown concept maybe for a lot of folks, and what we wanted to try and do today was hear from Stef about her experience, and then start to share some of the ways in which it might be a talent stream for you as an organisation. So Stef, you mentioned earlier HLA as a concept, so that's higher level apprenticeships here shown on the screen. So that's really anything above a foundation degree, HNC and upwards. Those are the programs that Caleb and Oscar are on, is that right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then there are lower level apprenticeships that might not apply to every organisation. Those are the more traditional areas, level 2, level 3, that we know of for hair and beauty, motor vehicle, etc. And they're equivalent to GCSE and A levels. So you can see there that there's a really rich number of pathways for apprenticeship, maybe different than what most of us would have thought. Certainly, when I started working in this space 5 or 6 years ago, I could probably only name about 5 apprenticeships, but actually there are over 200 different pathways at all different levels. So yeah, these are some of the examples that the companies that we're working with at WorkPlus are starting to choose, and even some of the businesses like construction, manufacturing, and professional services aren't just thinking about apprenticeships in the technical area that they're known for. When they're a larger organization, they might have marketing assistants, finance assistants, IT assistants, general administration, customer operations. So they can think more broadly about how apprenticeships could be used across your organization. That's maybe a bit different, Steph, to your case, where it's very much a technical delivery software team that you've got. So at this stage, at least, maybe in the future, an HR assistant for you would be great as an apprenticeship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So really, Steph's mentioned about Instil being part of WorkPlus, and really what we've done is we've listened to employers and to people who want to become apprentices and all their influencers, and tried to provide something in the middle that can help you as an employer to explore apprenticeships, but then also help you find apprenticeships as well. So we're built for collaboration in that sense. So we're trying to bring all the parts of the apprenticeship system together in a way which structures it better, but fundamentally and most importantly puts employers front and center, because an apprenticeship is a job above all things. It's got that education element built into it. But you've heard from Steph today saying that they've got a proper contract, they're well paid, they've got the same benefits as everyone else. That's really important, that we start to get employers working together to take on apprentices, but then collectively with that common cause and common voice to reach out to the parents and schools, etc. So these are some of the companies we're working with. I mentioned construction, manufacturing, professional services. You maybe recognize some names in here, and they're different sizes as well. A company that's joined us this year is Kairos, which has less than 20 people. And it's a software development company founded by Andrew Trimble, the former Irish rugby player, and Gareth Quinn. And they're developing sports scheduling software for professional sports teams across the world, including Liverpool, Man United, and some of the NFL, NBA teams as well. So a really exciting company. And they've brought apprentices in for the first time this year. And then we have construction firms, and there'll be household names in the mix as well. NIE Networks. Again, NIE thinking laterally about apprenticeships, thinking about admin, quantity surveying, into IT roles as well, data analysts, not just the traditional apprenticeships that you may associate with someone like NIE. So those are the breadth of companies that we're working with, and we love to grow that network. So we're trying to make it easier for everybody. So Oscar, one of Steph's applicants, said to me that he applied to 7 different apprenticeships before he found WorkPlus. And that was while he was in his last year of school, when he really should be focusing on nailing his A levels. But yet he was having to be distracted at different times when his career teacher sent him an update or he got a notification from a particular company. And he totted it up, and he said he spent probably about 28 hours working on all those applications. And that's nearly a school week, in the middle of a very focused time, trying to apply to different apprenticeships. So what we try to do is bring all those applicants into one place, so they're applying once through WorkPlus and being seen by all the companies that we work with. And it's a time-based process as well, as we'll come on to think about in a second about our next campaign. So there's a common drum and beat that everyone's playing to. And then from the employer side, we manage that process, the upstream bit. The employer still shortlists and interviews. That's very much making sure that the employer is finding the right candidate. But we're trying to give you a bigger talent pool, but not just a talent pool that's big. We don't just want to give you lots of candidates. We want to give you one that's easily filterable down to the people that are really well connected with you. And the shortlisting is all anonymous as well. So we try and reduce bias in that process as well. So as I mentioned already, we've been going since 2019. We've helped in that time over 100 employers in different sectors to work together of all different sizes. and over 300 apprentices. And that retention rate is significantly high, as we've mentioned already, much higher than graduates are anyway, from what we can hear from our clients. And then we also worked with the Department for the Economy on a project last year. Stef has mentioned Tara already, so we did some work with Tara 2 years ago, and this is a quote that came across about just being looking to graduates for so long. That's starting to change now, and we've heard that today from Stef. And this is Joanne from Farron's. Again, working with Work Plus makes it easy for her to engage with apprenticeships and then also find apprentices. So it's encouraging to hear that we're alleviating her pain points. So our wider team then, so I've been involved from the very outset, and Catherine and Lucy are now part of the team as well. And we're really excited to work with the just under 60 member companies. We've got them all together in person tomorrow for the first time in 2 years, which we're really excited about. And we just want to try and grow that community of companies that are working together to change how our culture views apprenticeships. So yeah, we're keen to promote the companies that we're working with in lots of different formats. We do blogs and blogs with them and promoting the fact that they are leading the way in changing our culture around apprenticeships. And then also capturing the stories of the likes of Oscar and Caleb, and then putting that in front of the next generation, because they're going to be the influencers for the folks who are still at school. I should also say at this point, Stef mentioned already, to be an apprentice at a higher level apprenticeships, you can be any age. And we've seen folks who have maybe wanted to take a career change apply to Work Plus, because it's an easier way for them to move from a sector which is waning to a sector which is really flourishing, without having to take on the debt of the student fees, and also the risk of stepping out of a job and not knowing if there's another job for them. With an apprenticeship, there's a job from the start. We also loved seeing apprentices getting together as well across all the different companies that we work with. And we had an apprentice party at the Bullet Hotel before it sadly had its incident. That was nothing to do with us. But we like to do those 4 times a year, getting apprentices together to enjoy just hanging out and spending time with each other. So our YouTube channel is full of stories from employers and apprentices, parents, school leaders who are trying to change this culture around apprenticeships. Lucy is really keenly engaged with the schools here, and will often speak at conferences. The bottom right was when she spoke to a conference with all the careers teachers from all the schools in Northern Ireland. And then you can see on the left-hand side some of the schools that she's visited. And then the top right is when I spoke to the Grammar School Principals Conference. Again, that's a very niche group, but it's a group of significant influencers that we're trying to change the perceptions around as well. Just a few more examples of Lucy's great work that she's doing across the school community. I mentioned Meet the Parents earlier, and you can see here the in-person event that we held to help parents in the room listen to parents of apprentices. And that word contentment comes out time and time again. And it's lovely to hear that. So we continue to do those sorts of things to help shape parents' thinking. And this is a quote from a blog that we did with Vincent McMonigal on the left, and his daughter Jane is an apprentice with Atkins. And Vincent just talked about how this has helped Jane to start to flourish. And she's doing that much earlier than her friends, because they're maybe still at university or college and they haven't got into the working world just yet. Just to mention as well, we're working on a pilot partnership with Wallace High School in Lisburn, and to develop a work experience pilot, which is to get all the companies that we're working with having a 3-day period where we're going to help facilitate work experience for the whole of the year 12 at Wallace High School. And that's before they make their post-GCSE decisions. So again, it's a similar approach, trying to get, helping companies to work together to overcome a big challenge, which is often how do I find work experience as a young person. The schools are struggling in that area, and the employers need help as well, we find. So we're helping to coordinate that too. So we're working in the media as well to try and promote apprenticeships far and wide. And we've also are talking to politicians as well. And we've met with a few of the economy spokespeople at the political parties over the last few weeks, and we'll continue to do that, to influence them to try and build a culture of apprenticeships here in Northern Ireland. So this is our next campaign, which is coming up in August. It's around GCSE and A-level BTEC results time. So it's open from the 18th to the 29th of August. But really, we'd love to have employers signed up no later than the 31st of July So after this session, we'll send a follow-up email, and there'll be a note there just where you can book a meeting with us if you want to be involved in that campaign. And those will be for apprentices starting in September. And then our next main campaign is going to be January to March of next year, and employers will sign up to that before December. So that's another opportunity for you. So we'd be delighted to chat with you. I can see a questions come in here, so let's pick that up, Stef. And as I say, just as we come to a close, I'm conscious this is lunchtime for everybody, and we said 45 minutes, so we've got 5 minutes at the end. But do type in your questions if you have any other coming through. So question coming in here says, is this program only for young students? And what about part-time working adults? I'm starting 3rd year science and computing, and I've done loads of online courses. So it's a great question. So we picked up on that a little, in that for a higher level apprenticeship, which is anything at level 4 or above, so that's a foundation degree or a degree, you can be any age and be an apprentice. So that would be ideal for those circumstances where there's a need to move into something which is an employed situation rather than just doing continual courses that aren't employed. So an apprenticeship would be ideal in those circumstances whenever you're not a school leaver. So any other questions coming through? Let's see if we have any more. Nope, I think that's it. Steph, any final thoughts from you just as we finish up? Anything that was unsaid in the earlier part that you want to reinforce?
No, I don't think so. I suppose just if there are employers in particular who are kind of on the fence about it, the only thing I would say is that working with yourselves is easy. You know, I do echo what Joanne and others say. Like it is easy. The administrative, the time that we save on the administrative side of things that you guys unfortunately have to do, it makes such a difference. You know, I don't just recruit, you know, the entry level, we recruit at all levels, and we are constantly recruiting. Therefore, you see having to actually go through what you would have to go through on your side, Richard. I wouldn't have the time to do it. I would probably be less inclined to be as engaged with the apprenticeship program if I did. And I know that's a terrible thing to say, but it's just business at the moment. Like, we're all so busy, and so Work Plus definitely do make it easier. I would recommend that anybody, you know, engage with you. So you can pay me later for that comment. But no, genuinely, you know, I have found it really, really easy. Lucy and yourself and Kath are really, like, I have found it really lovely to work with you all. And even just to get out with the schools and stuff, like, we would be very passionate about being involved in the work experience and stuff, which you well know. So it's a great opportunity, whether it be for one apprentice or more, you know, it's still a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, I think your point you make there about more employers, and for us, we have an average of 7 applicants for every apprenticeship opportunity. So so we think about it, changing our culture around apprenticeships. We're winning the culture war, maybe more on the supply side, where more young people retraining, parents, schools, principals, job centres, they're seeing the benefit of this. But currently, there are only 9% of employers in Northern Ireland that hire apprentices, and so in that way, you're part of the exception. You're part of that 9%, and it's how can we grow the other 91% to help connect with those opportunities? Because the apprentices that have come through are sticking at it. They don't regret it. Their friends and are jealous of them, and all those quotes that we can see on the slides earlier. And it's a better way, as you found, even I suppose from your own experience, that sense of working and studying in parallel, and it can be intense at times, but it brings a reality to your learning. I guess, Steph, is maybe a reflection.
Yeah, 100%, definitely.
So it's great to see that it's working out for Oscar and Caleb, and you've got three starting in September as well.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to see that. And just remains for me to say thank you, Steph, for your time today, and thanks to everyone who joined us as well. There will be a recording available, and as I mentioned already, we'll send a follow-up email with a link in it if you want to book a follow-up meeting with us. We're really grateful for your time, and thank you, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.